What's up, everyone? Welcome back as we get through my run in the Malamar Games. Uh, I'm kind of catching up because the Charlotte Regionals put me behind, and I did the same for my opponent this week. It's NeilVGC. You probably know them from YouTube. They are a much bigger channel than mine, but I will, of course, be linking them in the description below, so definitely go take a look at their content. This week's theme was really cool. It's what we call Opponent's Choice. So basically, beforehand, we gave each other 6 Pokemon, and we have to build around it. Now, I'm not sure Neil fully grasped the spirit of this and that we're not supposed to be nice to each other. I tried to give him 6 mons that would be very difficult to build around, and he gave me 6 that are like not top tier or anything, but I felt pretty good about using the 6 here, and you can see the team I built. For reference, the 6 I gave Neil were Gastrodon, Screamtail, Murkrow, Pelipper, Torkoal, and Sableye. Now, the Pokemon you give your opponent do have to be within the top 50 of usage, so they can't be garbage, but my strategy was to give my opponent 6 pretty supportive mons and see what they can do with that. Neil, however, gave me a sand team. I mean, I wouldn't bring it to a tournament, but these 6 Pokemon are certainly functional, and they've definitely all done well, so yeah, anyway, I feel like I have the advantage going into it for sure. So just some fairly basic sets here. I did opt for Terra Grass, Terra Blast on Sandy Shocks because Gastrodon might give this team a little bit of trouble. We're going with a bulk up set on Corviknight just as the ability to like completely stack up boosts. Murkrow does potentially have Haze, so that could be annoying, but we're just gonna have to see what kind of set they bring. Standard Lycanroc T-Tar set. I did go Terra Water here because I didn't really see any potential for big fighting moves, and that will help me against their Torkoal. It's still a great defensive typing. Mimikyu for a Trick Room set to let us fire off big moves with Torkoal, although we're going with a much more defensive Torkoal set because really it's unlikely that I'm going to get the Sun Weather up. I'm going to be leaning more into the sand side of things. Yeah, so without much further ado, let's hop into the set and see. Oh, one last thing. Because we were both so rushed, unfortunately the set was played on Showdown, so we'll go ahead and see that. It's my first bit of Showdown content for the channel. It will be much quicker as a result, but I'll do my best to commentate all the same. Let's hop in there. Alright, so what we're going to do here on Showdown is I have a replay of all the sets here. I'm not going to say how many games are in the set. This will go by fairly quickly compared to on cart just because of the lack of animations, but the set itself was quite fun, and Neil really brought it considering the horrible Pokemon I gave him. Not horrible in a vacuum, but they are not great together. They generally want something strong to bring them up. So yeah, let's go ahead and start it up. I'm going to pause between each turn, kind of talk about my thought process, and then we'll keep going. So Neil starts with Screamtail and Torkoal, whereas I start with Sandy Shocks and Mimikyu. I figure that Sandy Shocks just has super effective damage into basically everything on their team, right? I have Earth Power into the Torkoal, of course, Thunderbolt into the 2 Flyers, and then I can go Terra Grass and Terra Blast into that Gastrodon, right? So really good damage to everything besides Sableye and Screamtail, and we can still chip those. We have very appreciable damage, especially with the Photosynthesis and special attack boost there. So here, I'm thinking that Earth Power into the Torkoal really makes sense. The worst case is they can protect it, maybe disable it the following turn or something like that. But even then, Thunderbolt into Torkoal is quite good. So we can do that, and then also maybe we get rid of their weather, right? Tyranitar here can really just get rid of any offensive pressure Torkoal might have. So we go ahead and do that. Neil makes a smart play, protects the Torkoal, and then sets up the light screen. So from here, we still have that Earth Power pressure into the Torkoal, but it seems like a pretty obvious switch or Terra, so we have to kind of decide what to do. I also have Heavy Slam as tech on the T-Tar, and that was specifically because I knew that I'd given Neil this Screamtail here, and I really needed coverage into a Fairy type outside of the Corviknight, right? So let's go ahead and see how it plays out for turn 2. And Neil does pop that Terra, so this Thunderbolt that I did in an attempt to get around a potential Terra type still doesn't work because closed sheets, I don't know. And now he starts to stack up the body presses. So now Neil has 2 screens up, Reflect and Light Screen, pretty big deal. It's going to be hard for me to push through that, especially with the 2 times defense on the Torkoal now. I also don't know if it's a body press set or if it's a specially attacking set. So let's move on to turn 3 now. I go for a Thunderbolt into the Screamtail. Neil hits the Dazzling Gleam. I hit a Brick Break, get rid of the screens, which is also tech I brought because I was scared about Screamtail setting screens. Even though I missed the KO, the sand picks it up, so now we're in a fantastic position because his screens are gone. I have both my Pokemon alive, and The only and Torkoal's weather is still gone. The only downside is that I still have done nothing about his boosts, but because we're in closed team sheets, I now have an opportunity to show off that Terra Blast tech. In Neil's shoes, I think that the Gastrodon is positioned pretty well, immune to Sandy Shock's electric attacks, takes neutral from the earth power, and gets super effective damage into that T-Tar. So my suspicion is that he wouldn't protect here. I swap into Mimikyu to predict a body press, and I was trying to call a protect from Gastrodon by protecting here, but they're going for Curse, so it might be physical Gastrodon, which is actually crazy, but we're just going to pop our tech here. And it makes a lot of sense that he protect the Torkoal, because that does seem like the thing that's more threatened here. We pick up the KO, and we're in a really good position now in game 1 with a 4-2 advantage. So a little bit of a spoiler for next turn. This protect on Sandy Shock, which makes sense. I'm generally scared of the Shadow Sneak coming in from a Sableye, right? That seems like a fairly normal move. Fake Out also pretty normal here. And I have the super effective fairy damage into it, and Neil's already popped Terra, so there's no real danger of that. Sableye generally doesn't run Protect too, so a Play Rough into that slot with my Life Orb Mimikyu really seems like the play. Let's go ahead and see how it plays out. He goes for Calm Mind. So this is a special setup Sableye. It is absolutely wild, but we get the big attack off. We actually missed the KO by just a little bit, and Neil's Berry proc. So that might have been a calc that he did, because he specifically knew that I would have Mimikyu. And then Sableye has Recover, which is actually crazy. I've never seen that before. Let the turn play out. Body press from the Torkoal. Despite the really great lead I had going into this turn, I'm now in a lot of trouble, actually. Both my opponent's Pokemon are set up pretty well. The good news, though, is that even after all that, even after I missed the KO onto Sableye with the double in there, I do still have Shadow Sneak, so I'm in a pretty good spot for this game, despite the great comeback Neil made here. I send in Lycanroc. We get the Shadow Sneak KO on Sableye, and then we're just going for Rock Slide Flinches at this point. The ×2 defense still makes this a bit of a problem for me, right? And at this point, it's kind of hard to say what's the best play. I was hoping to get an Endeavor play off, like hoping that Torkoal would go for a body press, but Neil is smarter than that, knows that Lycanroc often carries Sash Endeavor, and so is instead chipping me down, like breaks my Sash and can now body press me the following turn. So still not out of the woods yet. That ×2 defense on Torkoal's really big physical bulk is a problem. So I swap in T-Tar here because he's unlikely to body press the Mimikyu slot, and then I protect Lycanroc. He goes for the protect himself, which is kind of interesting, but we're just getting the Sand Chip to counteract the lefties. And now we just keep clicking buttons and kind of hope that we get away with it. Double Rock Slide is a coin flip to flinch, but we don't get it, and the body press Oko's T-Tar. So our 4-2 situation is now only 2-1, and it's a bit of a problem. We need to just keep attacking. Go for Rock Slide, plus Play Rough, with the Sand should just about pick it up. Yeah, but very close again, and yeah, that's game 1. Really made those Pokemon work, and we only just about got away with it. So let's move on to game 2 now. Oh god, light mode, who does this? Okay, let's keep it rolling. I start with Corviknight and Tyranitar. My Neil sets up Reflect, and I start setting up Bulk Ups. Heavy Slam into the Screamtail again. We're in a pretty good spot, and that Gastrodon goes for Curse. So once again, we are staring down a potentially physical Gastrodon, which is just not something I want to deal with, to be perfectly honest. Like, if it gets enough of those curses up, then, it doesn't care about its speed, and it has, it's effectively doing what I am with Bulk Up. It might even have Gyro Ball. Does it get that? That would be kind of crazy with it's a move that does more damage if you have less speed, so I could see it. Let's go ahead and see turn 2. And he goes for the Encore, locking my Corviknight into setting up, but who cares about its stats if that happens. I get the Heavy Slam off, and I do kill the Screamtail, but now this +1 super effective liquidation was a crit. That probably matters, actually, and it's a big deal because I could have gotten a Brick Break off on the following turn, right? I would have loved to crack that Reflect, but that's a big crit. +1 liquidation, super effective. Maybe it's not necessary. I don't actually know that calc off the top of my head, and I doubt I ever will need to. But it's a big deal, which means we are now 3-3, and Neil gets to keep his Reflect up into my heavily physical team, for that matter. He sends out that Sableye, and I send out Sandy Shocks. But this turn, this game, Neil knows about my Grass Terra Blast tech, so Going to be very careful. Probably going to pop his own Terra if I had to guess. It's actually just like last video. It's been a little while since I played this game, so I don't remember the exact turns. Less time than the one against Andy La VGC, but yeah, still a problem. So let's see what we have here. That Sableye is probably going to start setting up Calm Minds, although it's not unreasonable to expect that it might have Will-O-Wisp. That's a thing to definitely be careful of. But yeah, we need to start dealing with this Gastrodon, and special damage from Sandy Shocks is probably our best bet. So let's go ahead and see how this plays out. I go for the Grass Terra just to not be weak to a ground attack from Gastrodon. I put the Earth Power into Sableye, and I get a crit of my own. With the Calm Mind, probably Prankster Calm Mind, which is really cool, actually. That almost certainly mattered. I guess it's a crit for a crit, but sorry, Neil. I'm locked into the bulk ups, so I'm just continuing to stack up boosts here, and Neil does the same with the curses. So we are both have very heavily boosted Corviknight and Gastrodon respectively. Now this is a problem, right? Torkoal comes out, and I now have two Pokemon that are very weak to it between the grass and steel types. But the thing is that I've kind of got the pin, right? Because the Terra's already been burned on Gastrodon, which means that I can just click Earth Power into this Torkoal without much danger. Neil needs to get my Sandy Shocks off the field to have a real shot. So he goes for Protect on Torkoal. I do the obvious play of Earth Power into it, and then I'm forced into continuing to bulk up. And he goes for Liquidation into my Grass Sandy Shocks. And it's in Sun too, right? So that's some rough anti-synergy that was kind of forced by the Pokemon that I forced on him. But also he must just not have any coverage, right? We've seen Protect, we've seen Curse, and we've seen Liquidation. I don't know what the final move is. I don't think I missed it. I think it just hasn't been clicked. Yeah, so unfortunate. But at this point, I think I've got a pretty commanding position as the encore ends. And yeah, there's the forfeit. So fantastic set to Neil. I apologize for the showdown over the nice animations in the game. This was just kind of a result of our scheduling around Charlotte. I promise we'll be back to the reasonably nice looking content from Scarlet and Violet in the next video, which I believe will be against Audie. So yeah, definitely look forward to that. Until next time.